Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Bradbury Group, New Zealand's best weekly political argument, hosted by the militant, Marxist, anti-Santa, Martyn Bradbury. The Bradbury Group is streamed live on Rover, Sky TV, YouTube and Facebook. Proudly sponsored by Wātea, journalism you can trust. Let the arguments begin.
Kia ora Aotearoa. The true demarcation of power in a late-stage capitalism, liberal, progressive democracy is the 1% richest plus the 9% enablers versus the 90% rest of us. And once you see politics through that lens, the left can never lose an election ever again. Welcome to the Bradbury Group Election 26, New Zealand's best weekly political argument. I'm your host, the editor of the daily blog, Martyn Bradbury. Bomber to my comrades, Mr. Bradbury if you're nasty. My pronouns are us and we. Coming up on this evening's show, the political panel all-stars tonight are militant cyclist and listener columnist Simon Wilson, Labour MP for the mighty Ngarewa, Arena Williams, and former New Zealand Herald columnist, academic and political commentator Matthew Hooton. Tonight's 1-on-1 in 10 is the Minister of Police, Mark Mitchell, on the threat of organised crime and impact of meth on our community. With a police budget of $3.2 billion, why are we losing the war on drugs? Our extra 1-on-1 tonight is co-leader of Te Pāti Māori, Debbie Ngarewa-Packer. The prison population is set to soar by phenomenal levels, mostly thanks to changes to shoplifting laws. How is putting shoplifters into our prison system helping with justice? Shout out to Kiwi Skirt and Kiwi Bird for moderating tonight's YouTube page. Good evening to all the Bradbury Easters online watching right now. You make the show one of the most watched live podcasts in New Zealand, and your comments will appear on screen as we go. Shout out to our Wātea, Facebook, Rover, Spotify, Apple Podcast and Sky TV whānau. Remember to like and subscribe because that's all that is holding the Fourth Estate together right now. And our Twitter panel this evening is Tim Selwyn. He'll be tweeting live online at Twitter hashtag the Bradbury Group. Before all that, however, is this week's War on News. Brothers and sisters, to conflate his own 80th birthday with the 250th birthday of America, Donald J. Trump arranged for a UFC match on the grounds of the White House. Because when you think about it, a blood sport cage fight sponsored by crypto and energy drinks at the president's residence is a perfect 250th birthday present for the military-industrial complex. It has that perfect balance of book-burning testosterone, redneck sweat, and lynch mob small penis energy to celebrate 2.5 centuries of murder capitalism and corporate profit blood money. So, happy birthday, you United States of wounded masculinity. You are terrifying the rest of us now. Please don't invade us. Please. Happy birthday. Talking of unnecessary violence, Matua Shane Jones, for reasons known only to the great Matua, decided last week to start a fight with legendary BBC broadcaster and globally beloved environmentalist Sir David Attenborough by slagging Sir Dave off in his latest rant against RNZ, where the most compromised man in New Zealand politics fumed at any mention of how utterly compromised he is by his donors' interests. Matua Shane Jones references himself in the third person so often he's become three-dimensional. Matua Shane Jones is being very Matua Shane Jones about being so Matua Shane Jones. Why? Matua Shane Jones thought shitting on legendary BBC broadcaster and globally beloved environmentalist Sir David Attenborough was the smartest tactic to use when attempting to defend the environmental damage of his donors is a moot point because other than Satan, Adolf Hitler and Darth Vader, who would attack legendary BBC broadcaster and globally beloved environmentalist Sir David Attenborough? Matua Shane Jones trolling legendary BBC broadcaster and globally beloved environmentalist Sir David Attenborough is a little like Trump getting into a fight with the Pope. I mean, like, sure, you could get into a fight with legendary BBC broadcaster and globally beloved environmentalist Sir David Attenborough / the Pope, but why would you? Can Matua Shane Jones stick to not slagging off internationally renowned conservationists when defending the most destructive fishing techniques used by his donors? Which environmentalist will Matua Shane Jones start a war with next? Jane Goodall, Greta Thunberg, or Steve Irwin? And finally this week, you know it's election time because here comes the Taxpayers Union and ACT Party's self-manufactured war on fragile snowflake farmers. According to the right, the left are coming for the family farm, which is hilarious because the entire economy, political system and society in New Zealand is geared towards agriculture, and yet the farmers want more? We created a monopoly for them, a monopoly they use to gain the highest price offshore, which we then have to pay. How can we compete with 500 million Chinese middle-class consumers when there is only 5 million of us living here? We sold 49% of our electricity assets to create a $400 million irrigation slush fund. We weakened the methane targets, and we are building Fonterra an LBG terminal, and we are allowing them to secretly write policy to kill off Mike Smith's legal case against them. We do all this, and yet the farmers still want more. Oi, farming community! When are you going to pick up your end of the couch here? The rural vote represent 12% of the country, yet have 100% control of politics, the economy and society, and yet they have the audacity to play the victim like a Karen wearing gumboots. No matter what the environmental question, National's answer is always more cows! The political panel all starts up shortly, whānau. But first, this week's 1-on-1 in 10 with Police Minister Mark Mitchell on organised crime and the terrible damage meth is doing to our communities. Kia ora, Minister. Welcome to the show and thank you for being available to the Fourth Estate. Your democracy is grateful.
Good evening, Bomber. Am I on with the panel or was it just you and I?
It's just you and me, buddy. 10 minutes. Let's go. Comrade, we could spend...
Firstly, I can see the panel here, so hello to everyone and a big congratulations to Matthew on his appointment as editor for the Post.
Amen. Amen.
Which might reignite your belief that you could become a National Party candidate, Bomber.
One day. Comrade, we could spend the next 10 minutes shouting at each other because, let's be frank, we have very different policing philosophies, and as entertaining as that may be, I am genuinely concerned by the expansion of organised crime into New Zealand and believe we face a threat that isn't left-wing or right-wing. It's a safe New Zealand thing, and I'm honestly interested in your perspective for the many whānau who are living with addiction in their community. So again, thank you for appearing tonight.
No, of course, no problem at all. And, it's an important discussion to have, and you're absolutely right that, the emergence of transnational crime is an issue right across the globe. These organised crime groups, they're well-resourced. They have plenty of money and they've got the ability to be able to open up supply chains right around the world, including in our part of the world, down through the Pacific and into Australia and New Zealand. Yeah.
Minister, wastewater testing shows that meth use is up 15% on average, despite the police receiving $3.2 billion in funding. I put to you that the enormous influx of 501s from Australia created a unique situation in the domestic criminal underworld, with 501 syndicates bringing with them a level of uber violence and criminal sophistication that hadn't been seen before. In your opinion, were the New Zealand police too slow to understand what was happening with these new 501 syndicates influencing the domestic criminal scene in New Zealand?
No, the police understood immediately because obviously they were on the front line in terms of having to deal with them. But you are 100% right, is that they introduced a new level of violence and sophistication, organisation and funding, around the illicit importation of contraband, not just drugs actually. But the police have been swift to respond to that. We're running big operations. We've got dedicated gang units, and most of the gang leaders at the moment are in prison. But you're right about there's a big increase in wastewater testing and methamphetamine. When we looked at that, we actually waited to see, or we were looking. I was a bit puzzled by that, how we had such a big increase, and there was no evidence to say there was more people actually using methamphetamine. So now we're sort of 7 or 8, 9 months into it. That hasn't shown up either in the health system or in terms of meth-related violence and criminal offending. So what we think is it's the same people using the drug, but they're just using more of it.
Right. And initially, domestic gangs had imported pseudoephedrine to cook meth or had contacts with triad bulk importers of finished meth. But the new 501 syndicates have South American cartel links and can import a purer and cheaper meth, giving them market dominance and advantage. These syndicates operate at a counterintelligence level. Again, are you confident the New Zealand police have the skill sets to combat organised crime at this level?
Yes, I do. And actually our law enforcement agencies here in New Zealand are admired around the world for how good they are. We're lucky in New Zealand because we don't have to operate inside a state or a federal system. We've got one national system. All of our agencies speak to each other. Since I've been the police minister, I attend quarterly the meetings of police ministers and commissioners in Australia. I've brought that relationship much closer, and also up in the Pacific as well. We're trying to push as much support and coordination up into the Pacific to help them because they've got real problems with drugs up there as well.
In 2021, there were concerns voiced about the Gang Intelligence Centre with complaints internally of poor leadership that had struggled to reduce the harm caused by organised crime, while only last year your government's own advisory group told your Associate Police Minister that New Zealand is losing the fight against organised crime. I ask again, are you confident the New Zealand police have the skill sets to combat organised crime at this level?
So that was a ministerial advisory group that was put together. It's done some very good work and provided some good advice to my associate, Casey Costello. I didn't agree with all the findings on that.
Okay.
I don't agree that we're losing the war on this. I think that we've been very effective. I think that you would have seen in the last week, there's been some big operations that have been terminated by New Zealand police. Like I said to you, we've got our prison population at the moment is the biggest it's ever been. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing because long term we want to see that reduce. All of us do.
Sure.
But the reason for that is because the police have been so effective in targeting the gangs and getting the leadership actually into our prisons and off the streets and trying to break them up and disrupt their networks and supply chains.
Let's talk about some of those recent operations. Operation Phoenix, led by the National Organised Crime Group, culminated in recent days with 34 search warrants being executed across Northland and Auckland. This crime gang, however, was cooking meth, which was one of the warnings made by officials when David Seymour changed the rules in 2024 on the sale of pseudoephedrine. Your officials warned that legalising pseudoephedrine comes with risks, including a potential increase in domestic meth production. Why should Northland pay for domestic meth production so the leafy suburbs can get flu medicine?
Well, I think although you're right that there had been a reduction in cooking going on, it hadn't gone away completely. It was still happening.
Sure.
We've got checks and balances inside pharmacies to make sure that problem doesn't emerge.
Yes.
If down the line it shows that it has, then we'll pivot and we'll make the changes that we need to make. But there's no evidence of that right now.
Okay, there is a geopolitical dimension here, isn't there? With China through their shadow banking infrastructure, which allows 501 syndicates to pay for South American cartel drugs directly. If we were serious about breaking the connection between the cartels and importing meth, wouldn't we hire 100 Mandarin-speaking police officers and hunt down the Chinese shadow banking operating in New Zealand?
Well, we've got, the great thing about our police force now is it's so diverse. And we've got Chinese speakers in the police force. We've got strong ties that you would have seen last year. We've had a permanent FBI office open here. We've actually got police liaison officers in South America. So we're sort of increasing our global footprint as well, so that we so that we're actually tapped in, getting good intelligence to inform us in terms of the decisions that we're making back here in New Zealand. So there's a lot of work going on, Bomber. And some of it I can't speak about because we don't want to give away the tech.
Of course.
These, as you've alluded to, these crime syndicates, especially out of South America, they're sophisticated, they're well-resourced, and so we don't want to give away exactly how they're doing things, but I just want to give you a sense that never have we been as close as we are to the Australians. Never have we had as big a presence up in the Pacific Islands and providing support there. Never have we been in such a good position in terms of intelligence gathering and running counter operations. And the one that I do want to, that you've just alluded to, Northland, that came out quite simply about Ngāi coming down, meeting with me,
Yes.
senior iwi leaders, and saying, what can we do?
Yeah.
And this is a culmination. That was over a year ago. So that's indicative of the amount of work that's actually been going on up there, working with all the communities, which has been really important.
Yes.
Because that's the most effective way of us dealing with these issues. Because as you know, all the social issues that come with them are so destructive for us as a country.
Right. Is the shadow banking one of the real reasons we have that FBI base operating in Wellington? Their experience with counterintelligence and monitoring international calls could provide New Zealand police with far better insight, couldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I meant Ngāpui.
Oh, of course. Sorry. Yes.
Yes, sorry, that was on me. Yeah, we've got far better tools available to us now. Look, and you're talking about finance and following the money.
Yes.
We work very closely, police work very closely with IRD. We use every lever that we've got available at central government to be able to bring to bear as much pressure as we can on these groups, because ultimately, Bomber, we want to make New Zealand a very uncomfortable place and a very difficult place for these gangs and these organised crime groups, the transnational crime groups, to operate in New Zealand.
Absolutely. One of the most alarming insights into the recent Northland bust was the tactic by gangs to target solo mums to addict them and spread their distribution networks. Many whānau have become horrifically addicted to meth, and we don't have the rehabilitation programs necessary to get whānau off the meth. When will the government start being as focused on the programs to get family off meth as much as we do everywhere else?
So we have got our resilience programs that we are running around the country, specifically designed and partnering with community organisations to get in alongside people to educate, work with police to actually try and reduce the harms of meth in our communities. You know, at the end of the day, my core belief, I have to go straight at the problem, right? So the issue was a massive increase in violent crime, and all the problems associated with that. And I don't have the luxury of being too nuanced about it. I just had to go straight at the problem.
Sure.
That's what we've done. But you know, the cornerstone of my belief, and Matthew might talk to this because he's got a long history in the National Party and would have been involved in sort of the growth and the development of our social investment model. The social investment model for me is what I really believe in, and that is quite simply identifying really early where we can make the biggest difference in people's lives, and then making that investment there. And there's a big chunk of work going on across government at the moment. You got to partner with local government. You got to partner with iwi and hapa. You got to partner with community groups. But it's actually because none of us want young people coming into the criminal justice system. None of us want anyone coming into the adult criminal justice system. The best way to deal with that is a whole of society approach.
Yes.
With government leading a social investment on identifying where we can make the greatest change and difference in people's lives, and where we make that investment from a central government point of view. That sounds very easy. It's not. It's actually really hard. But you got to start somewhere on it.
Finally, Minister, if there is a change of government in November, do you think Police Commissioner Richard Chambers will have lost the confidence of the next Labour-led government after his remarkable claims on Labour candidate and former Superintendent Rakesh Naidu?
Well, they'd be silly if they did, because he's an outstanding commissioner that's got the support of his front line and the support of the public. And he's been very, very effective. He's now 18 months into the job, and I think that his results will speak for him. I was very clear myself that I was disappointed in the way that was handled. That should have been, in my view, the earliest opportunity to inform the commissioner that a senior officer or Rakesh was looking at becoming a candidate. I've got no problem with him becoming a political candidate. I think that regardless of what party you are from, you come to Parliament because you want to make a change and you want to do something positive for your country. I believe although politicians, fair enough, we get a hard time. I do believe it's an honourable profession where you do go there to try and do the right thing. So I'm not against anyone.
Did you feel personally? Did you feel like we know that you've got a very close friendship with him? Did you feel personally betrayed that he did it?
I worked very closely with him.
Yes.
I just felt that I just felt that he let the police down and the commissioner down, because he should have, at the minute he went into talks with the leader of the opposition about the possibility of becoming a political candidate and a politician, then he should have informed the commissioner so that a plan could have been put in place for him to keep him safe and also to protect the political neutrality of the police. The police is a very different service. They've got powers that no one else has.
Agreed.
Over members of the public, and so I felt very strongly that yes, that somehow it seems to me, I just can't accept the fact that announcing a candidate 72 hours out is the right way to go about things.
Great, but true, but a great candidate for Labour, right?
Well, I think that you know, I'm not taking away his public service. Anyone that does public service, I admire, and they deserve to be recognised on that. But I just wish that they'd done it differently, because we've just come through a very difficult period of time around police integrity, and it's important, and those values should be lived every day.
Thank you, Minister, for your insight and oversight. We do hope to speak with you again before the election on more crime and punishment talk. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for having me on, Bob. It's good to see you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. The political panel all stars up shortly, whānau. But now this week's extra 1-on-1 and 10 with co-leader of Te Pāti Māori, Debbie Ngarewa-Packer, on the soaring prison population. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being available to the Fourth Estate. Your democracy is grateful. Debbie, the male prison population is expected to grow by more than a third in the next decade, and the number on remand will leap by 48%, while numbers for women prisoners will jump by 63% in prison and 83% in remand. These forecasts are based on changes in sentencing that could see repeat shoplifters sent to prison. Two questions to start with. Why are we building prisons and stuffing them full of shoplifters? And who is being protected and punished by creating new aggravating factors for serious retail crime?
Yeah, I think I've got another question to answer that question with, is why aren't we monitoring the performance of governments and ministers who, to be honest, consecutive governments had failed to answer to us how they're reducing those that are going into prisons, how they're reducing and removing the barriers that are creating the increase of prisons and prison beds and the increase of prisons being built, full stop. And I was really interested in listening to the minister, because I was a part and have quite a bit of knowledge about the social investment model and the actuary approach to it, where they're sort of looking at how we look at the future liabilities. The reality is there has never been a government that's invested properly in the equity investment, and the fact of why is it that we have growing numbers here, a large proportion who are under the age of 30, the highest age group, I think 30 to 39, the second largest age group are 20 to 30.
Yeah.
These are big problem, and no one really wants to deal with why we have these figures. We should be asking ministers and asking governments to justify for us why we should live with 200k a year spent on a prisoner, versus coming up with removing the issues that get us there in the first place. The investment in addictions, the investment in mental health, the investment in kaupapa Māori solutions. And we don't. So we continuously go down this revolting cycle where you and I discuss about, what is the next reason that we lock more of our people up. Prising your way through justice is not justice.
Amen. We seem to have a very race-based approach to crime. We have young, disillusioned Māori and Pacifica causing retail crime with exploited migrant Chinese and Indian workers, while the white suburbs gasp that something must be done. Who is influencing crime policy in this country?
Well, I think if you were to look at the stats attached to a typical person in the hinaki, in the prison, and a lot have had almost 10 agencies involved in their lives.
Right.
10 agencies. So if you want to look at who's underperforming, you need to ask yourself, as a government, Why are we paying for this agency, this agency, this agency? We've got a huge population of 15 to 24-year-olds that aren't in education. They're not in training. They're not in employment. That's a continual cycle.
Right.
And then we end up with this intergenerational equation where we sort of keep saying, oh, let's just lock them away and build more prisons, which is why we've been really opposed to prisons. And I know it absolutely, it was almost like, ending apartheid in South Africa. Oh, good, look, Māori Party's going to let all the Māori, criminal Māoris loose. It's actually not about that. It's actually about investing and having equity investment in the issues which are often attached to poverty, which are often attached to the high stats that we see of those who go into prison who aren't, registered with health providers, who aren't getting any subsidised health, who are failing in education, undiagnosed for multiple disabilities.
Right.
And so if we could just turn the lens there as a nation, and indeed, I like the fact that this government has taken a real focus on victims. Absolutely. We should always have fewer victims, but we should also have fewer offenders. And a safe community is a community that addresses the issues that get us into these situations and these cycles from the beginning.
If you are shoplifting repeatedly, you either have a mental health issue or a serious poverty issue. How will going to prison help either of those two issues for that shoplifter?
Well, it doesn't. And that's where this, as a nation, and, my tupuna were the very first to ever experience the New Zealand justice system. And its whole purpose was to lock you away and break you.
Right.
And so you won't ever come out with whatever the reason. And, we've got, the stats that show head injuries, mental health, addictions, alcohol, fetal, all sorts of issues that, again, as I said, have been identified and have been part of the system.
Yes.
When we talk about systemic failure, these are perfect examples. And it's not Debbie, talking from, an uninformed perspective.
Oh, no, this is the academic bloody research.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's been happening for ages. And we see really good kaupapa. So if we were really to change and flip the model about, again, let's look at future liabilities and the actuary model and what we should be doing. Okay, it's how much it's going to cost us to address this. But the reality is, until we have an equity lens on issues, it doesn't matter what you put into here, because we've got a whole generation and continual intergenerational issues that are going on that aren't building a safe country.
Right.
Everyone wants a safe nation, a prosperous nation, and a nation that respects tangata whenua. And the justice system from word go never respected tangata whenua. It was built for tangata whenua. It was built to again oppress us.
We know prison population rates are a Māori issue because Māori are overwhelmingly the vast majority of the prison population, despite being only 18% of the general population. How much of this is a feature of colonialism, and how hijacked by the rednecks has law and order become in New Zealand?
I think it's hijacked because it's just too hard to really understand. I'm really disappointed in the Prime Minister's, flippant way of not understanding what real communities like I live in are contending with. And they're not, and I'm going to say this. So you look at the stats for someone that gets inside at 25.
Yes.
From 15 to 24, they were on some agency radar.
Yes.
You don't just wake up in the morning and go to prison. Life can be tough. And if some of these, not circuit breakers in some of these communities and some of these, bad cycles and addressing, again, addictions, whatever the health disability issues that are continuing with, if we don't come up with substantive solutions, then we continue down this really sad, destructive path. Now, here's the real dilemma for Aotearoa. In 30, 35 years, don't quote me there, it might be even less now, we're going to have a different demographic in Aotearoa.
Yes.
And we're going to have a lot of those that hate Māori at the moment, age and reliant on this larger population of Māori Pacifica adults. And, we have a responsibility now to think about how we make them be the best adults so that they're actually fully engaged and looking after the older generations, and there's a better social cohesion as a nation. There's a better understanding for who we are as a nation. But right now, locking them away and not addressing the failures that, like I say, 10 agencies,
Yes.
Oranga Tamariki,
Yes.
MSD, let's name Ministry of Health,
Yep.
let's name them all,
Yep.
have done, is actually how we're going to continue to have this pile up at the end. And it's really worrying because I know they're not easy solutions, and I know
Yes.
much smarter people than me have talked about this, but we do need to address it if we want to have a nation that's going to be keeping communities and people safe and well and able to reach their full potential.
Preach. Finally, Debbie, many voters who want to see this government be a one-term government really need hope this year. Has Te Pāti Māori decided on an MMP strategy to take to the voters of the Māori electorates for election 2026? Because candidate vote Te Pāti Māori and party vote Green Party would generate an MMP overhang.
Look, I think we have a taonga.
Yes.
We've been very, very blessed to have the taonga that we have as Te Pāti Māori. And at times you have to do what's right by that taonga
Yes.
and for our nation. And that requires being better than the other parties whose egos can't let them think smart.
Yes.
We are going for the candidate vote, and we are saying to our people to put the best party forward. You know what our relationship with the Greens are.
Yes.
And you know, that is the cordial that we will continue to develop and
Preach.
talk to our people about. And we have to get this government out being smart. And if it takes the smallest party that's had some of the heaviest times,
Right.
we'll follow our ego and do what's right for this nation, because
It could
to
be the
have this
difference. It
government-
could be the difference. It
to
really
have
could.
this government come at us again, it will destroy any hope we have of being able to be a happy nation with well tangata whenua, well tangata tiriti. So, you know, we will be smart about our messaging during this campaign period.
Thank you, comrade, for sharing your insight and oversight this evening. All power to your arm. We'll see you again next month.
Appreciate you all. Ka
Be
kite.
well. Be well. Okay, now to our political panel all-stars. When our first panellist appeared in the flesh last week, we all joked that it foretold a new National Party backstabbing coup. And in a funny kind of way, it was. Andrew Little, get out of the way, because there is a new cheerleader for the capital in town. Right-wing Svengali, former New Zealand Herald columnist and new editor of The Post, born-again Wellingtonian, Dr. Matthew Hooton. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show. What's up, Doc?
Well, we start with one word of the week, don't we?
Yes! Your word of the week.
Well, it's been a surprising week.
Surprising. It has been, hasn't it?
It was my word.
What we just saw there were two tough but respectful discussions.
Yes.
They were serious, well-informed, in-depth, intelligent. This is the Bradbury Group.
This is
I get
what we
enough
do.
of that sort of stuff 12 hours a day. I come here for something else. What the hell's going on here? Is this some sort of alternative universe?
Yeah. We've got better while you've been away.
And Debbie said a nice thing about one aspect of the government, and Mark said, well, this is crazy.
Everyone's so frightened of you. Our next panellist hails from the mighty South Auckland. She's a cross between Jeremy Corbyn, Greta Thunberg and Mighty Mouse. Labour Party spokesperson for commerce, consumer affairs, building, construction and youth. It's the member for Manurewa, Arena Williams. Kia ora,
That's right.
comrade.
Here I am.
One
Up
word
from
to describe the week, please.
Accountability. I've been thinking about this in Scrutiny Week in Parliament. And yes, you're right. We're here with Matthew Hooton, who will be held to not only his account as when his political neutrality has really been challenged before he's even got a foot in the door by scrutiny on the left, but also, you know, we are in this period where the government's budget has just really hit the decks. People are working out what it means. Who pays for the costs of this government's decisions? It's the disabled people losing things like total mobility. It's homelessness highest on record, with housing assets accumulating at the top. It's no cost of living relief for ordinary New Zealanders, and a system where we need to get some answers.
Preach. And last but certainly not least, he's the first son of Auckland, a militant cyclist and ceaseless campaigner for a better world. On the side of the angels, urban architecture, and probably veganism. He's that odd pottery piece you bought from Trade Aid but wasn't sure what it was. Listener columnist Simon Wilson. Kia ora, comrade.
Kia ora, kia ora, kia
One
ora.
word
Let me
to
just
describe
tell
the
you,
week.
I made a very good lamb shank. That's what I've done. And for the one word, Look at my T-shirt. Read my T-shirt. This is a transit map from Budapest because my word is fair caps. Fair caps. Labour's fair caps, and I do not come here often to praise what Labour's doing.
Isn't
but
it great?
This time, it is a great policy in every way.
Every way.
It's going to meet economic objectives, economic resilience
Environmental.
objectives, environmental, congestion,
Yes.
public health, road safety, all of those things.
Whoever came up with that idea is a genius, quite frankly.
And it is not going to cost much, and even if it costs several times more than
It's
what
worth
Labor
it.
has
It's
said,
worth it.
Labor might well be embarrassed by the way they come up with their number, but it doesn't matter because the more it costs, it means the more successful it is.
Exactly.
And it is still a tiny fraction of the Land Transport
That's right.
Fund,
That's
less
right.
than 1%. Whereas National, of course, has a $65 billion Roads of National Significance program, which is unfunded. This is a real...
Yeah.
This really is, and it doesn't happen all the time. This is a bingo policy.
Great policy. Brothers and sisters, let's get into tonight's show. Issue 1, first quarter GDP data due on Thursday versus opening the straight growth hope. Is it enough for National? Issue 2, the billionaire class in New Zealand. Is the oligarchy making us a plutocracy? And issue 3 tonight, Hooten here's a what? What to now for the Post? Plus, we'll have a final word at the end of the show where each panellist gets to go to the mountaintop to see who breaches broadcasting standards this week. My money is on John Tamaheri, and he isn't even on tonight's show. Let's kick things off with issue 1. First quarter GDP data due on Thursday versus opening the straight growth hopes. Is it enough for National? Monsieur Houston. Trump's inane military misadventure has caused enormous economic damage for totally needless reasons while managing to weaken America and Israel's strategic interests. Can this truce hold? And even if it does, economic growth for the rest of the year is going to suffer, isn't it?
The situation Trump has created is a disaster. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. As you say, he has weakened his own country's national security. He's weakened the security of his main allies in the region. And what was a hypothesis that Iran had control over the global economy has been tested, and at the very least, it hasn't. It's a hypothesis that has not been falsified.
Right?
And I don't understand why Iran would do a deal.
Right.
They've won.
Right.
And obviously, if it holds, that's good for Iran, that's good for the United States, it's good for Israel, and it's good for everybody.
But it's going to take months to clear, isn't it?
Well, it just doesn't seem to make sense that it would hold because Iran has such an incentive to exercise its power. And it's not a democracy, remember. It doesn't have to worry about its own people's welfare.
Follow-up question. Economists are predicting positive first quarter GDP data on Thursday, but the economists have been wrong all this year. How much of a political problem will lack of economic growth be for a government that sells itself on economic management?
Well, if you were a beehive strategist, what you'd be wanting is for this to be a good figure, obviously, because it's the last figure they can really be judged on.
Yes.
And they know that when the next figure comes out, close to the elections, 3 months, they're going to say, oh, that's Trump's fault.
Right.
And it will be Trump's fault.
Yeah.
So this is the one that will determine the economic debate around the election, that the government will want to say, look how good things were until Trump came along, and the Labor Party will want to say it wasn't as good as it should have been.
Arena, we had dueling budget hole dramas this week with the finance minister claiming Labor has an $18 billion budget hole, while Barbara Edmonds pointed out that National has a $56 billion budget hole. Who is telling the truth?
I like that National has tried to make us a fiscal plan that is not based on our policies and is a pretty unfair characterisation of the work that Barbara Edmonds has been doing.
Is it as desperate as Stephen Joyce in 2017 when he tried the $17 billion hole? Is that what we're
Well,
saying?
you're right to point to those examples. Every time we end up with a silly debate that doesn't help New Zealanders see the real fiscal picture. Labor has put up policy around implementing an independent budget office. Barbara Edmonds has led that, and National have pushed back. It would be in everyone's interest to make sure that we get these costings in a way which is transparent and fair, especially when, as you say, these GDP results, they don't include most of the knock-on effects in our economy of the war in Iran.
Yeah.
It will get worse for New Zealand, and these are the last figures that we have to really judge whether the government had juice in the tank.
Yeah. Follow-up question. While defending criticism of Labor's excellent public transport $20 cap, Chippy notes that National never faced the same level of scrutiny from the media for their false tax cut promises or their corporate welfare for big tobacco and the oil and gas industry. Why will Labour be attacked relentlessly by the Post from now on?
Oh, look, I think all oppositions face the trouble of trying to cost these policies, which we are trying to tell New Zealanders how much they will cost and how much they will benefit from.
Yep.
Those costings are based on transport use now. And opponents have used a projection of transport use in the future, which they have based that on their opinions. That is the debate we find ourselves in. That's why you need some form of agreed figures that you can all point to and have a real discussion about what is reasonable for New Zealanders to expect in the future.
Simon, experts say that even if the Strait of Hormuz is opened on Friday, it will take between 4 to 6 months to unclog the logjam, meaning oil prices and inflation will be with us for the remainder of the year. With business liquidations at an 11-year high, unemployment set to rise, and a collapse in housing values, how will voters be feeling come November?
You know, there's a couple of things that really surprise me about this situation we now find ourselves in. Matthew put his finger on one of them. Why anyone would think that Iran needs a deal the way America needs the deal is beyond me as well. So that makes it shaky to start with. And the other one is I'm just astonished at the global share markets. Constant ability to go, we just heard a bit of good news from Donald Trump, so we'll buy shares again. Oh no, we heard some bad news, so and they seesaw up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
Do these people not read the papers apart from the numbers? Do they not understand what's happening? It is extraordinary, the volatility in a situation which clearly is shitty and will stay shitty for a long time to come.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it seems to be that the market is running on the idea that Trump is a rational player. And so it's this whole thing is such a mistake and cluster that the market say, well, he's got to stop it at some point because it's just so counterproductive. What if he's not a rational player?
Yeah, that's
what if there's a terrible mistake here and he really is a moron?
Gosh, really didn't think of that.
But they're looking at him as a rational player in the market. But he's clearly not
you're
a
absolutely
rational
right.
player in the market, is he?
And the argument is midterms are coming, and it's only till early November. It's only a few months away, and therefore Trump's going to snap into line and start behaving rationally. Surely. Today, tomorrow, next week. There's no evidence for that. There's absolutely no evidence.
Right.
I'm persuaded by the argument that if you think Trump might do something terrible, he probably will.
Quick round to all of you. Economists are picking that the quarterly growth figure will land between 0.7 and 1% on Thursday. What are your predictions? Matthew Hooton.
0.8.
Oh, that's pretty good. Arena?
Oh, that'd be low. Government will be looking for above 1.2. I'd say it'll be 1.
You're all saying 1 is the highest it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm under one for me.
Comrades, we need to move on to issue 2 tonight, and that is the combined wealth of New Zealand's richest people has climbed to 129 billion, according to the latest NBR Rich List, with the number of billionaires rising sharply to 26. Arena, billionaires operate in a society that enables their wealth. They stand on the shoulders of society and they draw their wealth and power from that society.
Bingo.
With minimal obligations placed upon them. They have benefited from an educated civil society but want to pay sweet bugger all for its upkeep. Is the oligarchy turning New Zealand into a plutocracy?
That's not the right question. The right question is show me the rule book that let them get there, and we should be fixing it. Because if you can play the game in your lifetime and earn $1 billion, I'd be surprised. How much of this is asset inflation for the New Zealand billionaires on that list? How much of it is because in our markets that ordinary New Zealanders have to buy from, supermarkets, electricity, those assets are inflating, and those people who are paying for the accumulation of wealth at the top are the other half of the poorest New Zealanders who own the same amount of wealth as the 26 at the top.
Right. Follow-up question. The 7 biggest polluters were caught out secretly giving the government policy decisions to stop their pollution from being legally challenged.
Yeah.
How much influence do the rich have over everything in this bloody country?
that case should be able to go on, not just because it is an important environmental case, but whatever you think of the merits of it, the rule of law is important to everyone.
Right.
Including billionaires. Anyone who wants to make money in New Zealand, anyone who believes in the market economy should believe that when the government sets the law should be known and knowable.
Yeah.
And this is an example of where lobbyists have seemingly approached the office of the Prime Minister not only for a special law, but also to be immune from scrutiny about that approach.
Simon, in 2010, the 388 richest individuals owned more wealth than half of the entire human population on Earth. By 2015, that number was reduced to only 62 individuals. In 2018, it was 42. In 2019, it was down to only 26 individuals who own more wealth than 3.8 billion people. In 2021, 20 people own more than 50% of the entire planet. And in 2026, the top 0.001% of households hold three times more wealth than the bottom 50% combined, while Elon Musk became the world's first trillionaire. Is this feudal plutocracy on a burning planet?
I think, those are a lot of numbers and they all point in the same direction. But the one that astonished me that came out on the rich list and terrifies me actually, we had 18 billionaires last year in this country and now we have 26. In a year, that's a 44% increase.
Right.
It's like they're standing there with a large, powerful vacuum cleaner just sucking all the economic life, all the money away from everybody else.
Right.
It is absolutely extraordinary. And if you think about these people, these are not people who are adding, on the whole, adding much to employment, adding much to economic life, adding much to prosperity in this country. The people at the top of the list make cheap plastic toys in China to sell into America. That is what they do. And I just want to comment on your Trump thing, on your Elon Musk thing too. Elon Musk launching his company on the SpaceX on the share market, and the share market going mad with desire for that. If anybody thinks that the billionaire class at some point in the future of this planet is going to turn around and say we're going to start solving problems instead of making things worse, that tells you that they're not. They are simply there to make money as fast and as much as possible while they can.
Follow-up question. The great Matthew Hooton once said on the working group in 2024, and I quote,
Oh, no.
"The current National Party in its current formation exists to stay in power and deliver corporate welfare to its donors." Your thoughts on these wise words of wisdom?
In 2024. It
Yeah,
may
in
not
2024.
Be, it may not be true now.
I think we should just put it on a T-shirt.
I'm selling them. IACM. Matthew, National received over 50% of their donations from the property industry. ACT received approximately 32% of the property industry donations. New Zealand First received approximately 12% of the property industry donations. They all received donations from companies with fast-track permissions. Is this government the best money can buy?
Well, if they were giving those donations in the hope that property prices would rise, that hasn't turned out very well because property prices have fallen 30% since the peak, which the current Minister of Housing, in a cabinet paper, he said that's what he wanted to achieve. And the previous government also wanted to reduce property prices. So
he said that in 2024, though.
So that's true. As we head to the election, it's quite possible that the government and indeed the opposition's perspective on property prices would change just a little bit.
Quick round to all of you. Why are so many of our New Zealand billionaire class such total fucking douchebags? Arena, why are they such douchebags?
The New Zealand economy isn't rewarding innovation and it's not rewarding hard work.
Simon, why are they such douchebags?
I think that's a very good answer. We have an economy that isn't structured to reward entrepreneurship in a serious way.
Mr. Hooton, why are they such douchebags?
Well, that's not a term I would use, but the interesting thing is that the Mowbrays and Graham Hart have primarily made their money in the United States, as you said. Whether you like it or not, someone in the world was going to manufacture plastic toys in China and export them to the United States. It happened to be a New Zealander, which is perhaps surprising, and Graham Hart consolidated the box industry
and plastic bottles.
And and he foresaw that that as the internet shopping, online shopping, people would need more different shapes of boxes. I mean, it is, but no one else in the world saw this.
This is amazing.
So to become a billionaire, I think what it requires, unless it's just inherited wealth, is to see some problem that no one else in the world does. And in a way, a lot of that is if that
was all it was, if it was simply people with bright ideas making lots of money out of them, that would be something. But it isn't that. It's a whole lot more than that. It is a lack of resources that go into this country, and it is those richest people who, alone among us, have the capacity, the potential to make some kind of significant difference to standards of life, to innovation, to developing the prosperity of this country, who don't.
Well, as I say, it is interesting that those two people have made their money in the United States more than they have in New Zealand by far.
Comrades, we need to move on to issue 3 tonight, and that is Hooten. Here's a what? How Matthew Hooten has landed the best job in journalism. Editor of The Post. Brilliant masterstroke or apocalyptic nightmare. Simon, with you and Matthew Hooten now gone, why would anyone pay for a subscription to the New Zealand Herald to help outright billionaire Jim Greenan? Thomas Coughlin isn't worth the price of subscription.
I'm going to say
You know that.
I've got the best job in journalism. I write a Substack called Hopetown, and I enjoy it enormously.
Preach.
Yeah. However, could I?
I'm not sure we allow advertising for
you don't.
commercial ventures on this program, do we?
And I have actually little to say about the Herald at this point, but can I say something about Hooten?
Well, please
who
do.
I've known for some years. I was the editor of Metro and employed Matthew as a columnist, and on the basis that in the grand old days of Metro, when Roger edited the magazine and it celebrated and glorified Rogernomics, they had Bruce Jesson in there as a columnist.
Right. They did.
I asked Matthew on the same basis. I was running a kind of pinko urbanist magazine, and would Matthew come in and provide a different kind of voice? He was good. Matthew is extremely well researched. I think he's a gifted writer. I like him as a person. He's fresh and he's determined, and he's also committed to what's important. He doesn't get sidetracked by fripperies and so on. He was, however, involved in the dirty politics expose. He was a hollow man. I think a mark of what Matthew might do at the Post and the Sunday Star Times is he might get Nikki Hager as a columnist. How about that, Matthew? That might be a good one. He is not
interesting. I was asked that in the interview. It didn't get if Nikki Hager has perspectives that he would like to share on productivity crisis, the fiscal crisis, the entrenched poverty crisis, the housing. I think he'd be a great columnist.
I just want to say there's a couple of other things. Matthew, I've seen him again today described as a centre-right person. Matthew's not centre-right. He does have liberal social values. He is pretty hard right in his economic
libertarian nihilist, I believe.
It's like calling Bomber a centre-left.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I think, Matthew, there's one thing that is exciting about this. Matthew will want to be influential in not just in the Beltway, but influential in having the New Zealand political world focus on what's important and up the standard of debate and political conflict. And I think he has the ability to make that happen, I think. So that's exciting.
Yes.
However, he has two Achilles heels, in my view. One of them is the Matthew I know gets fed up quickly. So
doesn't suffer fools.
And I think that's something that when you're running a newspaper, you've got to be able to roll with things. And the other one is that there are only two types of people in the world who are completely certain of their own views. And the first type is very stupid people. And the other type is Matthew.
Libertarians.
It's him.
Arena, most people don't know how brilliant Hooten's writing is because he's behind the New Zealand Herald paywall.
Sure.
And the Daily Blog has a greater audience than the bloody New Zealand Herald paywall. Some of the woke have screamed they will cancel their subscriptions, but shouldn't the National Party, New Zealand First and ACT be the ones most worried by his take no prisoners editorial line?
Hey, interesting question, because it was something I picked up in the ODT's reporting of your appointment, Matthew, was you said, I'd hope that powerful institutions of New Zealand are a little unsettled by the appointment. And if you're a supporter, you'd read that as poacher turned gamekeeper. But if you're a critic, you would hear an editor that was planning to shape and direct coverage. And there is, fair enough, reason on both sides, and I think it's the kind of political statement that is about what is integrity in our media. It is about integrity is more than not having a bias. It's about telling people what your bias is and then telling the truth anyway. And you will be held to a high standard by not only your critics but also your supporters.
Matthew, comrade, congratulations on this exciting new editorship of the best political newspaper in the country. We've known each other for decades. We worked together on the I Predict election special all the way back in 2011. I think you will make a remarkable impact, and I will be swapping my New Zealand Herald subscription for one of yours. What do you say to your many reasonable critics?
Oh, many reasonable critics that I'll want to listen to them. And the comments from Simon and Aaron are absolutely fair and the sort of thing I will take on board. It's a big responsibility.
He's in the job already, isn't he?
And
So good,
I'm talking corporate language. I must not do that. But I'll tell you what, I think it's a pretty excellent product now. I confess I haven't been reading. I haven't been reading I haven't read it for years, but
it's good.
It is good.
Yeah,
it's a really good thing.
And they've broken a hell of a lot of exclusives this year.
They have, and there are some excellent, absolutely outstanding. Andrew Vance is superb. Luke Malpass.
Yes.
They're all. But I'm going to have to make a confession here. I'm going to have to hand in my Gen X.
Whoa.
You're becoming a boomer.
Has he got a favourite?
You've become a boomer.
No. There are some bridges that cannot be crossed, sir.
Tomorrow, I'll be promoting 2 millennials.
Oh, okay.
there you go.
That's okay.
Could I just
For goodness sake,
say,
I mean, we
Matthew,
X finally takes the power off the baby boomers and a whole lot,
hands
and just hands it to millennials straight away.
You traitor. Comrades, we need to wrap the show with a final word. Simon, your final word this week, please say.
my final word is what did you just say? Haven't read it in years?
The Post?
The Post?
Not really.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I've read the bits of it online.
My final word, and good luck to you. My final word is I worked at a media outlet once which had a new editor, and he had, by repute, told the board appointing him, I think this publication is too boring and I'm going to change that. I don't read it. It's so boring. Just what you said.
No, I did.
You didn't say boring.
Certainly did not. I said I haven't read it for years. I've been reading it over the last month.
I just want to tell you that new editor had a very hard time with the staff coming to terms with that.
I'm sure. It sounds like he deserved it.
Good luck in the newsroom.
Yeah. Your final word this week, please.
My final word is how good is it to have universalism back in public health with a small policy today from the Labour Party to make sure that everyone can afford maternity scans and that money will never be a barrier to expectant mums being able to check on themselves and their baby. I spent $90 a scan as an Aucklander, sometimes in really quick conditions where I had to go and get one urgently. This is really exciting for all of the mums who have been through that and all of the families who are looking to have more kids. This is the kind of important policy that will save some people some money and is a smart use of an investment that will help everyone.
Amen. Matthew, your final word, please.
Another little confession.
So many this show.
Flew into Wellington on Sunday night, looked down, got a bit teary-eyed. Yeah. And it reminded me of being 19 and driving down my Mazda Familia, beginning a new adventure. And Wellington, we all have our issues with Wellington if we live in Auckland and vice versa. But the truth is, they're just normal people.
So
they're just like Aucklanders or farmers. They're just normal people.
The
it's amazing.
terrible things you said about Wellington in 2024, you are now resigning from them. That's very good to hear.
Well, as I say, it's just normal people.
Thank you, comrades. And now to my final word. Brothers and sisters, After 108 days of a 3-week war that Trump had already claimed to have won 17 times, we finally get to the maybe possible signing of something on Friday. Trump hilariously claims this is a great victory, whereas everyone else sees it's the art of the capitulation, because the price of Trump's surrender is glorious. After killing thousands, after committing war crimes, after threatening the genocide of a 6,000-year civilization, after group assassinating the Ayatollah's entire negotiating team, after bombing that Iranian school and killing 170 school kids, after not gaining the nuclear dust, after causing massive inflationary distortions globally, after getting into a public fight with the Pope, after weaponizing the Strait, what did we actually gain here? Nothing! America and Israel are in a worse position than when they started, and the Iranians are the actual winners. The new regime is far more extremist after Trump and Israel killed the new Ayatollah's dad, wife, brother-in-law and son. Iran gains real leverage to lift all economic sanctions, and how Trump, who bitched and bitched and bitched about Obama paying back the $1.8 billion America seized during the Iranian Revolution, how he is going to explain to his MAGA rednecks that they will now have to pay Iran $25 billion in frozen cash. To fully appreciate how badly Trump has screwed up here, just consider the social media war. How crazy have you cocked up when a theocracy who bashes and kills little girls for not wearing headscarves beats a democracy in the propaganda stakes? How much of an asshole do you need to be to lose a popularity contest with a medieval Islamic theocracy? Trump and Netanyahu gave the Iranian regime the one thing they never had: legitimacy in the eyes of those they oppress. This has been the single dumbest miscalculation blunder since Vietnam. If you still think that Trump is some kind of saviour, you are the problem now, not him. We warned you he was a muppet. In solidarity, the revolution continues. Ka pai Aotearoa.
The Bradbury Group, New Zealand's best weekly political argument. The Bradbury Group is an independent podcast through the Rover Network, sponsored by Wātea News. Everything on the show is an opinion and shouldn't be taken seriously enough to attempt defamation action against us. We were joking. We're never serious about anything, and officially, a small weta in Avondale is legally the owner. Good luck finding him. Don't forget to follow, like and comment.